Welcome to Joy of Business Radio, hosted by Joy of Business facilitators from around the world, with special shows from Simone Milicis, the founder and creator of Joy of Business. Are you bored or dissatisfied with your work or business? Joy of Business is an invitation to a completely new way of creating. Did you know your business and job can actually be fun and joyful? If what you are currently doing isn't working for you, listen into this show full of pragmatic tools from Access Consciousness, which change everything in business, from money to finance, staff, creativity, productivity, communication, and beyond. Joy of Business Radio, weekly on OMTimes Radio.
So hi everybody, welcome to Joy of Business Radio. This is Emily Russell. I'm a Joy of Business Certified Facilitator. And today I have one of my favorite people in the world on with me, Julia Sotas. She is an Access Consciousness Certified Facilitator and also a Right Riches Facilitator. So Julia, welcome. Thank you for being on today.
Thanks for having me, Emily. I'm so happy to be here.
So I was talking with Julia and about what we were going to talk about today because there's so many places we could go. And we're talking today about the courage to be wealthy, which is one of the topics Julia came up with. And so we're going to talk about that because it takes a lot to be willing to be different and have money and be wealthy nonetheless, which that word might bring up a lot. So, Julia, do you want to talk about even just the title, like where you came up with that and what that means to you?
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, it brings up a lot of different things, but I just realized, I'm doing a lot of financial blogging these days and I started writing for different newspapers in Australia and the United States on finances, and so I was looking at other financial blogs to be like, so what's out there? Like, what are financial blogs about? And, I went online and they can be so confusing and so dry and so boring. And I realized that, unless we actually even tell ourselves or know that that's even accessible for us, we're not even going to take the step to get the information. And so for me, it's almost like the psychology of having money. You know what I mean? Like the willingness to actually know that we deserve it and that we're enough and that we're not, maybe we do want something more than the people around us, and that's not wrong. That's the kind of attitude that creates a better life for yourself and a better life, for the world, just based on your creativity. So it does take a lot of courage, and then we can get a little bit deeper into the wealthy part later too. So,
well, I know when you say that. So I was brought up in a family where we were middle class, but anything above that, it wasn't really stated that people that had money were evil, but it was implied that the people that had a lot of money in the world were not doing good with it, that we didn't really want to be any like those people. So my parents were determined to stay at very middle class. They were both lawyers, but then prided themselves on not being the lawyers that made a lot of money. The time that did all their work for, being public defenders and did it for the people. And so I really had a lot of issues with money. I mean, I still would really like to change a lot around that. But I get how much, I was also intimidated by maybe all the things you had to know, like you say when you did financial blogging. And, it's intimidating in some ways. So what would you say to people that are intimidated by that whole area of money, of wealth, of creating more?
Well, I guess it's I have a lot to say because I went from knowing nothing, being totally intimidated, to being like, okay, well, this is something I really want to have in my life. I want to create. And I want to have the money not just for me. I want to have the money to make other people's lives better too. And so it was like I was kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place because I didn't want to. I was totally intimidated. I didn't know where to look. I didn't know how to make money. I didn't necessarily, had confidence, but I don't know if I had confidence in that area. And then, but this was something that I really wanted. So it was like, how am I going to bridge this gap? And so I just kind of forced myself to start learning things about money. And of course, I listened to so many Access Consciousness classes and tapes, and well, not tapes, perhaps not cassette tapes, but MP3s. And I just learned and learned and learned. And then I also started educating myself on the history of money. I actually haven't educated myself on the world financial markets as much. I'm just more interested. I find that the more I educate myself on the history of money, and the more that I understand that world, the more money that I make. Just that understanding, it helps me to see why money is around and how people function and just how that all works. So two things there. Let me say first, if you're someone listening to the show and you're not familiar with Access Consciousness, you can go to accessconsciousness.com, and we have so many resources there, videos, tools, things that you can start to educate yourself. When you say the history of money, what do you even mean by that? I guess most people will be like, what are you talking about? Like, where did you start with that? Well, there's actually this documentary on YouTube. It's a BBC documentary, but I think all 4 hours are on YouTube. And I watched that. I've watched that a couple of times. And it's it can be, parts of it are confusing and dry, but parts of it are so fascinating. And the parts that are confusing and dry are actually really helpful too. But it talks about how money was first created in Venice, Italy, and how it was a mode of trade, and the Venetians would borrow from the Jews in the ghetto, and the Jews were shunned upon because in the Bible it says that you shall not lend money to anyone who is not your family for a profit. So these Jewish people were getting interest on what they were borrowing the Christians. Somehow it was okay for the Christians to borrow, but it was wrong for the Jews to lend. and so, right from the beginning, you look at the energy of that and just like the wrongness that we have around money. And I just found that fascinating. And the word bank actually comes from bench, because the Jews used to sit outside of the buildings. There were no banks, obviously. It's outside of the buildings on these benches. And so I guess the Venetian word for bank, for bench, it comes like bonk or something, and that's where the word bank came from. So that was really interesting. And then it takes us all the way to like modern day Memphis, Tennessee, and what credit has become, and how cars are, people are given so much credit that they can buy 3 or 4 different cars, all on credit, having no money to back it or pay it, and then those cars get repossessed and then pretty much sold back to the same people who bought them with no credit in the first place. And it's like the whole system runs on nothing. Like there's no foundation or backing. It's all credit. And you can have whatever you want without having money, as long as you're okay with it getting repossessed after a while. But it's interesting, and then I just find this stuff so fascinating, because in some lifetimes, if you had debt, they would come after your family and you would be killed. And in this day and age, debt is fine. You can file bankruptcy, but that's oftentimes a choice that you make yourself, and there's no legal repercussion, there's no physical repercussion. They're not going to go after your family. And so things have just changed a lot financially. So, I was not a nerd about this kind of stuff. I actually was totally intimidated by it, but I started learning about it, and I just love it. I think it's so fascinating, and I think it's so empowering to understand something that affects our life so much, which is money.
Yeah. Well, you bring up the thing about debt. I know we're both based in America. You're Canadian, but you're living here now. I think, and I don't know the exact number, but I think the average amount of debt in the U.S. is something around $40,000 that most people have, which is it's amazing. And one of the things we talk differently about in Access Consciousness is the difference between debt or referring it to the money you owe as debt versus a past expenditure. You mentioned like the energy of money, and those are very two different like things energetically when you look at, because I was a person, I grew up, my family, my mother loved credit cards, and it was sort of like that's how you afford your life. And I get many Americans and people in other countries, but definitely here for sure, it's sort of seen as, well, how else would I buy a car, or how else would I pay for things? You just sort of get used to this idea, oh, my credit card gave me a big credit line, I'll just do that and pay payments and not ever really buy something. Do you want to talk a little bit about that difference between debt and past expenditure and what it creates differently in your life when you're willing to be like, no, I'm going to create the money for this rather than always going into debt?
Yeah. Well, growing up for me, debt was like, it was death. It was one and the same as death. My dad is actually, I have to give him a lot of credit because he, even though I didn't listen to him at the time, he was an amazing financial educator. And, the man is subscribed to, I think, like 6 different newspapers. He's reading all the time. He's very intelligent and just really, really enjoys making his money grow for himself. And he taught my sister and I a lot about that. But but for him, debt was in line with, having debt was like a major, major character flaw. And it meant that you were, that you were very irresponsible and something was terribly wrong. So I actually accrued $33,000 of credit card debt at one point, just based on actually education that I wanted to take, becoming a facilitator of access and stuff like that. And so I created this debt, and I was just oh my gosh, the level of wrongness that I had, it seemed like I was never, ever going to pay off $33,000. And it goes to show you that what you're saying, Emily, if we have the point of view that something is a debt, or if debt's just part of your lifestyle, like you said, if you get this extra $7,000 on your credit card limit, well, why not spend it? I'll pay it off eventually. It's fine. Just a little bit of interest. That point of view is very dangerous. It is a very dangerous point of view to have. And so I kind of decided that even though this was for education and I was creating my future with it, that I was the kind of person who was irresponsible and putting money on credit cards that I shouldn't be.
So let's come back to this. We'll break for a moment and then continue talking a little more about how you changed that and what changed, with paying it off and the different energy you have around debt now. So we'll be back in just a moment.
No one needs to have a money problem, especially you.
Yeah, did you hear that? You have an unlimited and mostly unaccessed capacity to create money and a financial reality that works for you. Simone Milasas has a brand new book. It's called Getting Out of Debt Joyfully. And right now, when you go to gettingoutofdebtjoyfully.com, if you pre-order the book, you'll get a free online course. What if you can create money in ways no one else can? Just go to gettingoutofdebtjoyfully.com to get your copy today.
Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Aloha, my name is Jennifer O'Neill, and I'd like to invite you to come join me every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Hawaii Standard Time for my show, Spirit Chat. Spirit Chat focuses on simplifying the process of using the spiritual tools and gifts you were born with in a way that fits into your everyday life. I also teach different techniques that will help you learn how to navigate the spirit realm and empower you on your own spiritual journey. So join me this Wednesday as I guide you through the spirit world.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. The cutting edge of conscious radio, OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
And welcome back to Joy of Business Radio. I'm Emily Russell, Joy of Business Certified Facilitator. And today we're talking with Julia Sotas, who is an Access Consciousness Facilitator and Right Riches Facilitator. And right before break, we were talking about the money you've invested in the education, and a lot of it went on a credit card, which is so common for people. So what changed for you? So you have this $30,000 of debt, and what changed for you? How did you pay it off? I think people would like to learn more about that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think, I mean, for me, my point of view just had to shift. Like, I was not comfortable with this debt, but I was never complacent about it. Like, I mean, I spent it with the intention of, like, I got to pay this off in a week. Like, where do I wait tables? What do I do? Like, I have to get this paid off now. But, you know, what I did was, it's like, I know Simone talks a lot about putting away 10%. I actually made sure that other things in my life did get fed first, like my savings accounts, because I still wanted to be creating that future. I mean, I look at it all as the energetics of things. So I just had this drive one day, because I was actually, at the same time that I created that debt, I moved across the country from Manitoba in Canada to Vancouver, and my rent was also all of a sudden $3,000 a month because I moved into a place that I really, really liked. So this is like, if you look at this on paper, this is all crazy and totally irresponsible. But what it did was it stepped me, I mean, because I was self-employed and an access facilitator, it stepped me up to a whole other level of creation. And I kind of got to Vancouver and had this $33,000 of debt, and sat down one day and was like, I don't have the money to pay for my life. But I'm a really extreme person, so it's like the only thing that makes me create more is a huge risk, or jumping off the cliff and then having to learn how to fly once I'm already in the air. So I just started creating, and I used the tools of access at a level that I never had before. I was asking, money to come into my life every day, and just asking. Like, I have conversations with the universe, and I do ask to be in communion with the universe and ask the universe to bring me money, and it does. Like, it really, really supports me. And I know for some of you that might sound crazy, but I use the tools of energy and the tools of asking, and it's created my whole life. And it's just the way that I've looked at this that has given me, that has changed things. It's the demand that you have behind money. I could have gone, oh, well, it's, I'll pay it off. But I was like, I am paying this off now. And, from that moment that I moved into that apartment, I actually had that debt paid off within 6 months. So it was pretty fast.
So one of the tools you mentioned that if you listened to this radio show before, you might have heard about is the 10% account. Which, a lot of us have been told, okay, always have a savings account and put away 10%, which is a different energy. You're talking about the energy of money. I know when I used to do that before looking at it as like an honoring of me and what I created. I looked at it as, okay, here's my savings, but then when something would come up, like, wouldn't even really have to be an emergency. If it was maybe a trip I wanted to go on, or I went out to dinner too many times that month, I would use my savings every month, so I never was building anything for me. And then from Access Consciousness and Simone Millicis, who's the founder of Joy Business, the idea of this 10% account is it's an honoring of you and what you create. And it's not for a rainy day. It's not to save up for some big expense. It's like, it's letting the universe know, okay, everything I'm creating, whether it's from a paycheck, from a job, a gift, a refund on your credit card, any way money's coming to you, I would take 10% of that and put it away and just watch it grow as an honoring of here's what I create. And when I change the energy around that, I've never touched it. I've invested it in things that can gain value, like jewelry or things like that, but not spending it or, and having it go away. And so that, when Julia mentions that, that's really a tool. If you're not using it, it can really change your financial reality. And I know part of, like, when you say you moved into a new apartment and now your rent is $3,000, there's a demand that changed in your world, right? Like, okay, my expenses for my life are going up, but this is the apartment I want to live in. It's beautiful. It's different. And so part of that idea also is getting really clear on what your finances are. So a lot of us do like a budget, like, okay, I have this much for rent and groceries and car. And the idea with the access tools is, okay, but add into that the life you'd really like to have. So the rent you'd like at an amazing apartment, or the home you'd like to buy, or the massages you want to add in, and the money you want to gift to different organizations, whatever that is, and coming up with a different number. And the number you'll get might really shock you at first. You're adding in the travel you want to do, right? I remember the first time I did it, it was over double what I was creating at the time. But within 6 months, I was creating that because I got clear. And part of it, like you said, is having this conversation with the universe. And you have to be clear first on what you're asking for and the amount you're asking for, So what other tools, like that 10%, getting clear on, what you'd like your life to look like and what the amount of money you'd like to create, what are some of the other, like, your favorite tools or questions that you've asked to really change that? Because changing that in 6 months, paying off $30,000 is huge for most people. That's, so how did you go about the other things that are favorite tools?
Yeah, well, actually, I'd love to add a little bit more to the tools that you mentioned, because those are great tools, and I loved hearing your point of view about how you use them. And for me, it was like with the 10%, I started that as like about 6 years ago. As soon as I heard about it, I started doing it, and I even had some money in savings, so I went back 1 year and did a year's worth from behind too. So I was like really committed to that. But at the beginning, even though I was committed to it, I hated doing it because it felt like I was putting my money, like almost like I was giving it away because I couldn't spend it. It was like it was going into jail and it was never coming back, and I was hopeless with regard to money. It felt like, and so I had nothing there, and then I had to even give this 10% and put it in a place that I couldn't touch it. And a lot of people have this question when they're doing the 10%. Well, what do you mean I can't spend it? And that question always made sense to me, though. I never had that question because for me, it's like we're trying to create ourselves as somebody who has money and is wealthy and, actually uses their money to create a better world. And so it was always very obvious to me, like, of course you would put away money that you would never, ever spend, because that's the only way to be wealthy. Like as though people didn't understand, like somehow wealth would fall on them and then the lottery would be there and then they would have money. But nobody was willing to actually have money that they earn themselves. There was always this concept of, well, what the hell do you mean I don't get to spend it? Like, that's crazy. Why would I make money if not to spend it? But that is a very, very impoverished point of view.
It's like the point of view of a wealthy person is, you know, how much profit can I create and how much money can I have? And what we're not used to is having money. And having money is something that I talk about in my classes a lot, because it's not necessarily about receiving money. It's not about giving money. It's not about making money. It's about actually having money. And as my 10% has grown over the last 6 years, well, first of all, I know how much I've made in the last 6 years because I just have to add 90% to it. And so that's been really neat because that's something that most people never ever look at, is kind of their lifetime worth, or, you know, the growth of what they've created in the last 5 years or 10 years. So that's actually a really big asset to doing a 10% as well. But you know, as my 10% has grown, and I've actually added another 10% onto it for my business, so that's 20%. So I'm creating and living off of 80%. It's like I just have this, having that money in the bank and knowing it's never going anywhere makes me feel very wealthy, because wherever I go, no matter what I do, it's like I'm somebody who has money because I know that it's always going to be there for me. So that's actually changed my life. And that tool takes a while to build and grow, and it's definitely not a quick, easy fix. But if you're willing to commit to it for a few years, it really, really changes the way that you look at yourself and the way that you look at the world around you. And, you know, a lot of people will hear it and they won't do it because, you know, they do have huge debts and they just don't even see the possibility of creating extra. But for people, you know, I only really speak to, or I'm only useful, my tools, the Access Consciousness tools, are only really useful to people who are willing to create more, to reach beyond, to have extra and to build their life, because the tools don't really work if you think you can only maintain the same income, or you're not willing to you know, do extra things or be in the constant state of creation to make money. So I think that that's one of the kind of the prerequisites to everything that we're talking about, is you have to be willing to create more and more and more. And these tools are ways that are going to shift everything that you're doing so that you're opened up and ready for more. And it's kind of like setting it up for that. So.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you, Julia. All right, we're going to go to our second break, and we'll be back in just a moment on Joy of Business Radio.
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Tune in to the Practical Intuitive, Mind, Body, Spirit for the Real World with me, host Robin Fritz, Mondays at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 Eastern. I'll cover personal and business intuition, animal communication, mediumship, space clearing, past life regression, shamanic insights, energy healing, soul choice, and more, all to help you tap your own intuitive and healing skills. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Putting the fun back in business. Wake up, go to work, come home, watch TV, go to bed, repeat. Business, work, your job, hate it, bored, Want to leave it? Or business, work, your job, fun, play, joy, fun? Which would you like to choose? You may not know this, but business, your job, work can actually be fun. Shake up your business routine. Check out my 3-part free video series on putting the fun back in business. Go to accessjoybusiness.com/fun and put the fun back in business.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
So welcome back to Joy of Business Radio. This is Emily Russell. I'm a Joy of Business Certified Facilitator, and I'm talking with Julia Sotas today, Right Rich's facilitator, about the courage to be wealthy, changing your energy around money. And right before break, you said something really key, is that for the tools to work and all the things we share, you really have to have a willingness in your world to change your financial reality. And like you said, with putting like that having money and building a 10%, I know for me it was so different. I started to look at when that builds up, no matter, even if you do it for a month or two, you're going to start to have money. And it made me look at the amount in my accounts very differently. Like I used to be okay with getting to almost nothing at the end of the month and knowing, I'll get paid next month and it'll be okay. And then you start shifting so much when you have money that's not, like, I'm like, that's not okay in my world. Like there needs to always, you get used to having a different amount. So, you'll sometimes hear people say, well, I wish I had $1 million, or I wish I could have $1 billion, but there's no energy there. It doesn't really match, like they're not actually congruent with that ask. So part of it, like let's talk more about the energetics of that, because a lot of people listening to this, they get energy, they're having, they're desiring to have a conscious business, whatever that may mean. And so you talk a bit about that shift in energy and like being willing to have more money and like the tools that you can use so that you do start to get comfortable with being wealthy, with bringing in more money, having the courage to do that and really make a shift from where you are now to going to like what you used to maybe see as impossible.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I was saying in the break, it's like, we're not the kind of, this is not a teaching that's going to help you, know exactly, tell you to move one little thing over here and then you'll have, $10 more a month. This is like an invitation to a lifestyle change, of always reaching for more and always knowing more is possible. So for me, that's part of the energetics of it is it's just how you look at your life and what you want to have. And these tools can help you kind of in smaller ways, but if we're really talking about being wealthy, it's like, creating that is a lifelong thing. And it can actually, for me, it happened very quickly. Like once I moved to Vancouver and I had this beautiful house and all of these things, it's like my energy changed. Like I wasn't okay, wearing dingy clothes, and I wasn't okay just having a small practice. Like everything in my life expanded because I changed my energy and I made the demand that I was going to have more. And I do see some people do this and it doesn't work quite as gracefully as it works for me because they still have, points of view in the way, or they're not willing, they're maybe willing to make a little demand, but they're not actually willing to jump in totally. But every single person that I've seen who's willing to do whatever it takes and jump in totally has had success. And I mean every single person. So sorry, I'm not even sure what your question was, Emily. I don't even know if that helps.
So I'll ask you. No, totally. So one of the tools we have in Access Consciousness is the clearing statement, which basically clears all of the energy around something, because a lot of what limits us isn't what our mind, if we could figure out our money problem and change it, we would have done that. So there's often an energy you need to clear around your point of view, around things that maybe you picked up when you were 2 years old or, in other lifetimes. So if you want to learn more about the clearing statement, you can go to theclearingstatement.com. But so Julia, what from do you have a favorite clearing, say around changing your points of view around money?
Yeah, actually I have a few. my favorite is what energy, space, and consciousness can my body and I be to have never enough money but always too much to spend for all eternity with total ease. And everything that is times a godzillion, will you destroy and uncreate it all?
Yes.
Right and wrong, good and bad, all 9 pod and pock, shorts, boys, and beyond. So that clearing statement creates the energy that you and I are kind of talking about. It's like, it kind of fries your brain because you can't comprehend having never enough but always too much. But it speaks to, having always being willing to want more, and it's never enough. But, there's never, there's still always too much to spend. It's even frying my brain right now as I'm trying to explain it. And I've run it probably 50,000 times. And then there's always too much to spend. And that, for me, when I first heard that clearing, was so far away from what I was creating. I didn't even understand what was going on. But I ran it, and it took me about a month of running it on a loop. I mean, constantly. Like, clearing loops, I don't know if people realize this, but clearing loops are something that you can run all day and all night long. And every single time you hear it, or it, even if it's on a low volume, every time it vibrates through you, it changes the way that you function. And it can, doing these clearing loops can help you go from a really, really intense limitation in an area, and 2 weeks later, even sometimes like a few days later, or even an hour later, maybe if it's not as deep, but a little while later, it's like that problem never even existed. It's literally like having a magic wand. There is nothing like it in the world. There's nothing like a clearing statement. And I don't even know where my life would be without clearing statements, because there are things that I should have problems that I don't have as problems because I've simply used the clearing statement, and they changed as if by magic. So, and I've used a lot of different clearing statements on money. Money is one of those things that you can't just sit there and run clearing statements and have it change without any action. Sometimes, I've actually had people send me large checks in the mail that were totally unexpected. I've had friends, just like not people who play slots, not people who go gambling, but like maybe they went to a restaurant and maybe there was like a casino and they just decided to play for fun and won $1,000. That stuff I've seen happen purely from running clearing statements and nothing else. But if you want to keep moving, you add clearing statements to just, choosing and demanding more and taking bigger actions, and it changes everything. But, I just can't recommend, clearing on money enough. So there's that clearing, and then there's how many feelings am I using to avoid the money that I could be choosing? Mm-hmm. Everything that is times a godzillion, will you destroy and uncreate it all?
Yes.
Right and wrong, good and bad, all 9 pod, pock, shorts, boys, and beyond, because we use our feelings against us. Feelings don't actually exist. And we have so many feelings about money. And we're taught that our feelings are so important and so valuable. But a feeling is actually how you dismiss creation. It's like, how many times have you gone to create something, but you didn't like someone on the team, or you had the feeling that you were, not spending enough time, on your other business, or your parents had a feeling, and they were projecting their feelings at you that you were working too much. So, you stopped because of their feelings and your feelings of their feelings. And it's not that having no feelings makes you cold. It actually means that you have your eye on the prize more, because you're looking at, okay, so if I do create all of this, what greater world is this going to create? Because when I'm creating money, I'm not just creating it for me. There have been times when I've been like, I just want a new closet. I just want, new dresses and designer clothes and, $800 Yves Saint Laurent shoes. And when I just asked for that stuff, it never showed up. It never worked.
because I wasn't actually looking at the bigger picture and looking at creating a better world. But when I'm looking at, creating a better world, I've put money into some charities that we have in Access. I have 3 stepkids, and now that I'm using my money to, I bought my son it's just a beautiful bed, and he kind of had this crummy mattress most of his life. Going and spending $500 on that, or just making sure that the kids get all the food that they want and all the organics and just all of the things that we want. These things, making the people's lives around me better, and kind of doing creation work with my money, with building projects that are going to affect other people, building my business that positively, or whatever you want to say, just affects people's lives and empowers people and makes their lives greater. Putting my money into that stuff has made my money grow dynamically. And it's also helped me get the designer closet that I was looking for alongside. But just asking for the designer closet was not enough. And when you ask for a better world, the whole universe is willing to contribute to you, and you contribute to everyone around you, and you get your $800 pair of shoes.
Well, I love that, because the founder of Access Consciousness, Gary Douglas, said, what if the purpose of money is to change people's realities? And I think for a lot of people listening to this show, it's the same thing. It's yes, it's nice to have all that stuff, but we're all looking for, it's that energy of what if it is to change people's realities? And you having more money, I know part of, for me, the courage to have more money and to be wealthy is the willingness to knowing that if I have the money, that's actually what I do want to create in the world, is greater with it. And I had to get over all these points of view that I'm not going to be the one destroying the world if I have more money.
Totally.
Which I love. Right? I love that about the clearing statement, like you said. And when Julia says a clearing loop, if you don't know what that is, it's the couple of questions she asks with the clearing statement afterwards. You can record. There's all these apps on phones. You can record it on your phone. I use Voice Loop, which is on the iPhone, and then you can just play them on one volume or silent throughout the day, and things just change. The other thing I would say that is amazing for clearing a lot of your points around money is getting your bars run. We have a technique in Access Consciousness called Access Bars, where you just have points lightly touched on your head that basically clear all your points of view, all your feelings, your thoughts around different issues, around money, around everything that you may not even be consciously aware that you have. So if you've never had your bars run and you're listening to this, that can be a huge contribution for all of the clearings and really changing your financial situation. You can go to accessconsciousness.com/bars to learn more about that. And we have one more section coming up with Julia about money, and I know you have an awesome telecall going on right now. So we'll talk more about that when we come back. Thanks, Julia.
What do you hate about business? And do you want to change it? If you don't want to change anything about your job or business, stop listening. You're all good. If you'd like to have money just for the fun of it and stop the negative self-talk, check out Joy of Business. This is about knowing what you know about business and creating more than you can imagine. Access Joy of Business 101 classes offered around the world. Go to accessjoyofbusiness.com/101.
As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors. connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living, a chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me, and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
And welcome back. You're listening to Joy of Business Radio. I'm Emily Russell, certified Joy of Business facilitator, and talking with Julia Sotas today, who is a Right Riches facilitator and Access Consciousness facilitator. And we've been talking about all sorts of things to do with money, the courage to be wealthy. One of the great things, Julia, I adore about you is you always have ways for people to work with you. Like we've been talking about clearings and changing, a lot of the energy around money. And you have a couple of calls going on right now so that people can join no matter where you are in the world. One of which is the Advanced Money Workbook call, which actually has, different facilitators on it, including the two founders of Access Consciousness. Do you want to talk a little bit about that call and where they can join if they're interested?
Oops, sorry, I was getting myself off mute from the commercial. That call is, oh my gosh, it's just an amazing call. We've had our first two calls, but we're just getting started still, and people are still welcome to join. And oh my gosh, we had a call last week with Dr. Dane and one of the founders of Access, and oh my gosh, it's like in Access, nobody's ever safe. We're always willing to be vulnerable and look at our shit in a public forum, and he facilitated me in ways I can't even describe it. You have to get the show just to listen to that one call, because he changed my world. I mean, we were looking at things with regards to like fulfilling other people's needs and never creating as much as we know we can, and what's the difference between being there for somebody and having their back, rather than actually just always fulfilling their emotional needs and just, falling into a pit of feelings. And oh my God, it was amazing. So I highly, highly recommend the Advanced Money Workbook call. And like Emily said, like you said, Emily, there's amazing facilitators on it. I mean, these facilitators have been working with the tools of Access for 7, 10, 25 years. And like just a level of just kindness and power and potency that they have to just burst you into a different financial world it's not anywhere else in the world. There's nothing like this call. There's nothing like what you can get, and I just warmly invite everyone to come play on that. It's been really beautiful.
I so agree. So if they want to learn more about it, where do they go? Where do they find it?
Yeah, so they can just go to the Access Consciousness website. The call is on the Access website. And Gary Douglas, if you search for Gary Douglas or you search for me, Julia Sotas, it's under both of our profiles. So we have that. And then it's also on my website, juliasotas.com. I love my website. It's new and very intuitive. So it's just fun to
It's very easy to navigate.
Ratios. Yeah, it's easy to navigate. All my products are there. I have my past radio shows. All the archives are on there. Really good shows. It's a lot of fun. A lot of videos and blogs, and so yeah.
Because you're also
a great
part
resource.
of that call is, there's actually a workbook. There's a How to Become Money workbook, and then there's the Advanced How to Become Money workbook, which that call is about. And you can get both of those if you're looking for a place to start with changing your money situation. Those two books, which you can get on Amazon, you can go to the Access Consciousness website and get a Zuba shop there, are a great place to start.
They are.
So you're listening to this, they're amazing. They're amazing. And I know you also have, you're doing another program called the Daily Ask, correct? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So the Daily Ask is something that I did when I first started doing Access Consciousness about 6 years ago. And I grabbed a notebook and I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that asking could be this easy, because I had done The Secret, I had done, all kinds of different chiropractic modalities and tons of manifestation and things like that. But none of it really worked. And in the days that I would get so fired up, I would be so hard on myself because I thought I was broken because the modality didn't work, and I figured I had to be doing something wrong, and was really down on myself and hard on myself. So when I found Access and I found all you have to do is ask, and there was just something different about it. It was just something so light about that tool. It was so simple. It was so much more simple than any of the other modalities, but it seemed to start working fastest. And I started just asking for little things in my life, and they would show up, and I would be shocked. And then I was like, well, if I can just sort of lightly ask this as I go about my day, what would happen if I actually wrote down 10 questions every day of things that I would like to have in my life or things I'd like to create in the world? And I wonder what that would actually do. So I had a notebook, and I filled up the notebook over the course of a few months. Every day I would write down the date, and then I would write 10 questions. And, I was in wherever I was living, I stuffed it into a drawer, and I didn't think about it again. And then 2 years later, I found this filled notebook, and I went through it, and absolutely every single thing in that notebook was my life. It was unbelievable. I mean, I started bawling because I was like, oh my God, the world is so amazing. Like, all I have to do is ask, and I'm so supported. And we ask, and then we're like, well, where is it? How if it's not showing up, we're like, oh my God, I think I asked wrong, or maybe I looked at my dog the wrong way, and so that means that it's not going to show up because I'm a bad person. You know what I mean? Like, you're so crazy. But the act of actually writing it down and then not looking at it for years, it's like, oh my gosh, when I looked at it and saw that what I had created just by asking, it changed something in me. Like, I have never been the same since. I've always felt more supported and known more as possible because it showed me, it clear as day what we can create when we ask. So my class is actually, everybody goes and grabs a beautiful notebook, and we get together every day and we write down 10 questions or more. And then what I also do that's really special about this call is I teach people how to ask great questions. And we talk about different topics every day and how to ask really great questions in that area.
Awesome. So if people want to join that, can they still join? They can go to juliasotas.com?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it started a few days ago, but we're just at the beginning, and people are welcome to join for at least another 7 days.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So let's talk, because we only have a couple minutes left, and I think you have to go to your daily ask. So,
yes, I do. It's actually starting in 5 minutes.
Perfect. So what I'd love to do is like a kind of quick fire, your favorite, like you were saying, you're teaching people how to ask questions. So let's talk about maybe three. Give me your 3 top questions or clearings for having the courage to be wealthy and changing your money situation. I'll put you on the spot.
Okay. That's a good one. Well, one of the things that I ask, and I teach everybody who comes to Right Riches to ask is what is my financial reality? Because that's something that you have to start asking the universe to show you, and just searching the world for the energies
and the possibilities that match you as a being and what it is for you to have money and have wealth and create. So asking what is my financial reality it's just something that's been really key for me, and it's very easy. I mean, you just walk around during your day and just simply ask the question. I just sort of ask it in my head. I'll kind of look up to the sky and go, what's my financial reality? And then, because I'm asking, the universe shows me, and I keep receiving that awareness, and it's so beautiful. We don't realize the kind of beauty that we're capable of creating, and money is a part of that beauty.
So true.
Yeah, and then just repeating the clearing that I gave you guys earlier, what energy, space, and consciousness can my body and I be to have never enough money, but always too much to spend for all eternity with total ease? Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, pod, talk, shorts, always and beyond. So if you run that clearing on a loop and have it constantly on your phone or your computer, running in your house, in your car, for about a month, about 30 days, your financial situation can't help but change. It will change. And then the third thing that I would say is you need to read the How to Become Money workbook at least 10 times, because that book it teaches the courage of being wealthy and how to actually be the energy that creates money, and just it shows us what we're capable of. So reading that book at least 10 times, and that's available on Amazon. It's called the How to Become Money Workbook by Gary Douglas. You can buy it on Amazon or on the Access Consciousness shop.
Those are awesome.
So those are my tips. Yeah, I used them all, and they created mega amounts of money. So I can vouch for those three.
That is the thing. You have to use these tools. So I will say, if you're listening, use the tools and everything can change. Thank you so much, Julia.
Thank you, Emily. It was awesome.
Bye.